Exposing the truth behind the lies and fighting for the freedom of awareness. America's first competition talk show.
The Hub is engaging.
Talk Life.
Right now, all is spending. This is a continuation of Rebel's country. This is an American cause. It's a cause of freedom. There's something going on in this country.
Welcome to the Hub Internet Show, and this honestly should almost go without saying that the Federal Reserve is now screwing the pooch, but they are, and this has been an issue building. Some would say in the online community for the better part of a century that the Federal Reserve steps in the way our banking system is set up to bail out a myriad of different groups over the decades that we don't even hear about. We heard about and started a whole movement over what happened more recently in the last couple of years under the new administration. But this has been an old problem, an old issue that's been around for a long time. And the thing about it is, to me, they're doing this quantitative easing too right now, and it really shouldn't bother anybody because the left goes to such great extremes to paint things in a good light. Quantitative easing, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, the Consumer Financial Protection Agency. The reason we're so upset is because Republicans are now running the show and they just never get, what could be wrong with relief, with easing, with protection? Republicans are against all of that. That's why we have these problems, because you just dare to look beneath the front layer. And, they've gone to such great lengths to promote this and market this correctly. We shouldn't be asking these questions, but we are. And now we're left with a lot of the world markets, China specifically, and India and several others, saying we are going to have to put measures in place to put firewalls up to protect against a surge of dollars coming into our markets and emerging markets getting an influx of dollars, and the cause for inflation and all the things that we're seeing now happen because of the measures with QE2 that have recently taken place with the Fed. Guys, I've got a theory, because I know we just won back Congress, but a lot of folks are saying now, if the president were not to do one more thing between now and 2012, if all Republicans did were pass legislation that got the veto, pass and veto, just so that they could get Democrats on record and run on it in 2012, they did nothing else. All I would have to do at this point as the president is write out the clock. Because a lot of what's happening, and I know that sounds over the top, but I'm here to tell you, what we're seeing right now with a $13.6 trillion deficit and the interest incurred on it is that we have to pay for it month in, month out. We've got to come up with that somewhere. We're not selling treasury bonds. The reason we're doing this right now is because we don't have buyers for our treasury bonds. At some point, we have to service at least the interest on that debt, which means how do we avoid printing more, QE3, QE4, QE5, or doing something like I would think the Republicans should do, which is just say, no, we will not raise the debt ceiling anymore, which puts you in another precarious situation. So, big question. How do you find your way out of this and do something that stops the clock? Stephanie?
Well, you brought up several entitlement programs. Yeah. And the theory is, well, once you grant an entitlement, you can't take it back. Well, I argue that. And quite frankly, the first entitlement I think we should cut, and Boehner even said this the other day, is the paychecks of Congress. So they would make about $175,000 a year. Let's cut that by $75,000. Why do they need $175,000? $100,000 is a lot of money. Let's cut it down to that. There's $3 million there in 1 year. That's not going to cut into our deficit significantly, but that's the first earmark I think should go. And then you start looking at all these other things, the Turtle Bridge, all those other things. It's very easy, instead of saying, here's more money. I like the quote in this article. Everybody wants the U.S. economy to recover, but it does no good at all just to throw dollars from a helicopter. Well, we've seen what throwing money at something does. Nothing. It's not fixing the problem. Let's go to the base of the problem.
Well, I mean, throwing it from helicopter. I mean, it worked for WKRP with the turkeys. To throw the turkey thing. That worked. Everybody just assumed turkeys could fly. So, exactly. Kind of like fiat currency. That could fly. Let's hope to God. But that would be the spirit of the holidays, doesn't it? I mean, here's the thing, though. Yeah, Damon?
Yeah, you raised several issues in your comments. First of all, I don't really understand why the Fed is dumping so much cash into the system, because right now I don't believe that it's a liquidity problem. I don't think our economy has a liquidity problem. So I don't see why
there's so much capital sitting on the sidelines.
Exactly, sitting on the sidelines. So more cash into the system really doesn't benefit the system or get people off the sidelines. If I think the big question you asked is what is the next move? I believe we do need to cut a lot of these entitlement spending. I like your idea of cutting Congress's paychecks, but that's not going to get you any real dollars. The real dollars, 80% of the government's budget is in Social Security, Medicare. In defense spending. You got to start attacking those. And you got to start, I know George Bush tried it, you got to start reforming Social Security. You just got to do it.
Yeah. And see, that's my point. That's not going to happen. The big entitlement, mandatory spending is not going to happen in the next 2 years. But you can set the field for after that. And like I think here, everybody's missing the point. Right now, all we're looking at we're going to stimulate growth by pumping dollars into the market, artificially inflating the market by buying our own fiat currency, which is what we're doing right now. The problem here is that the systemic risk are the regulations being imposed. And the undue regulations on small business. And that all comes back to the bureaucracy and the increase in the federal role in business. I think what you do at this point with your power to defund a lot of these agencies and a lot of what happens in Washington is put the brakes on this. Say, regulatory enforcement is very hard to do when you don't have the money to pay for the paperwork to be processed. Mm-hmm. So, Stephanie, is that one way you put the brakes on for 2 years?
That definitely helps. But, you brought up Medicare, $60 billion a year in Medicare fraud. So we're going to spend a couple $100 million finally to start, doing the background of that. Well, that's $60 billion over how many years? The other thing is, everybody keeps saying, let's carry out Bush tax cuts. Let's make this clear. Those are no longer tax cuts. That's part of it. If you make $100,000, you're going to lose about $400 a month in tax. Well, you want to know where the capital is? The capital is sitting there so companies, small businesses can figure out if they can afford to continue doing business. So you cut those entitlements, you look at the $60 billion in fraud, you look at the regulations, and then you keep the tax cuts for lifetime.
Yeah, and there's still folks right now like Steve Englander at Citigroup saying that this is a good thing. He was the one who was saying that neither the Federal Reserve nor the U.S. Treasury, the Fed's initiative actually boosted markets. Equities were rising in Europe earlier in the week, London and the U.S., following the lead that was set in Japan, where the Nikkei average was up to 225. It gained 2.2%. So they're saying it's all sunshine and fairy tales. He said the no asset market left behind approach is officially endorsed. Damn, so it's like cash for clunkers all over again. We're like, give you the GM money to buy the GM car. You damn Americans go out and buy a Toyota. What are you thinking? Damon?
Well, again, go back to the issue of how do we really fix this problem. As oddly as it sounds, I think we really do need to look to Europe. And particularly what's happening in Great Britain, where they have cut. I think I heard the statistic today that they've cut government jobs, 15 or 20% of all the government jobs they've cut. I believe that's what we need to start really making some significant cuts to our government if we are going to try to stem this tide and turn this economy around. And you can either stop spending or you can cut some of the things that you've been doing. I think that's where we really need to start.
Yeah.
Let's start with the IRS, but that's just my opinion.
Talk about bravery. We go for the big ideas early. Stephanie for Congress. We'll see you
for term limits.
There we go. Term limits too. We'll see you. Yeah. The Federalists would have loved you. We'll see you tomorrow on the Hub.